Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. My name is Nauka Carey, and I'm a 1995 graduate of Harvard and Radcliffe Colleges and a 1999 graduate of the School of Education, as well as an attorney, developmental psychologist, and a law professor at NYU School of Law. I want to welcome you all to Crimson Courage's first official webinar. We have an absolutely incredible group of people joining us tonight, starting with all of you. We have over 5,000 people who registered for the webinar. So we know that there is a huge amount of energy behind this work. And we also have a fantastic lineup of speakers whose diversity of perspectives and experiences demonstrate the breadth of interest in supporting Harvard's independence, academic freedoms, and democratic values. So what to expect tonight? We're going to start by setting the stage with what is at stake in this fight. You'll hear more about Harvard's legal cases in response to the Trump administration's actions, and you'll hear from multiple speakers about the importance of Harvard's response, not just for Harvard, but for the country, democracy, and universities across the country. And you'll also hear from Crimson Courage leaders about opportunities to get involved in our work. A little webinar protocol here. We're asking that you put your name, location, and class or affiliation in the chat. And you can also put your questions in the Q&A. But the turnout and interest has been really overwhelming. And so it's really impossible for us to respond individually to the questions, either that you submitted online when registering or even to handle the questions tonight within the chat. But we wanted to let you know we did consider your questions when we designed the webinar, and we will be collecting and responding to questions posted in the Q&A tonight. So please make sure to post your questions there. So we have a super packed agenda. So I'm going to introduce Miles Rapoport to talk more about Crimson Courage and what we hope to accomplish. Miles is currently the executive director of 100% Democracy, and he was a senior fellow at the Ash Center at the Harvard Kennedy School. He served in the Connecticut House of Representatives and as Secretary of State in Connecticut, and he is a member of the Harvard College class of 1971. Miles.
Thanks, Nauka, for that very nice introduction. And I want to thank everybody for coming. This is quite an extraordinary turnout, and we are delighted to be with all of you. So I was in the class of 1971, and I have been actively engaged as an advocate and as an elected official, especially on issues of American democracy for the last 50 years. And frankly, I have never really seen Harvard as the kind of the place where I wanted to focus my energies and activity. But today is very different. 2 months ago, the Trump administration launched its offensive against Harvard and against higher education more generally. Knowing of Harvard's almost unique importance in our country's public life, I decided that now is the time for me to get involved. So when I learned of Crimson Courage, founded by a terrific group of alumni, including 2 old friends of mine, Karen Scharf and Lou Finfer, I decided this was clearly the place where I should put my energy. Harvard's decision to stand up and fight has galvanized alumni around the country and has made me really proud. The core group of Crimson Courage is now 150 people, and it's expanding every day. All of us know Harvard is nowhere near perfect. The university does have issues to deal with anti-Semitism, with Islamophobia, with racism, and in a general way with creating a community that is welcoming to all and to all points of view. We encourage Harvard to continue in that work. But the immediate need is for all of us to stand foursquare behind the university as it resists an unprecedented assault on its independence, its financial well-being, and its ability to function without the overbearing presence of an ideologically driven administration. This is what Crimson Courage is all about, and this is what tonight's webinar is all about. We'll hear from a remarkable group of speakers from a variety of perspectives, and also about an array of activities that you can get involved in. This point will be repeated many times during the webinar, but if you want to get involved, don't wait. There will be forms dropped in the chat that you can sign up on a variety of things, and expanding the number of supportive alumni is what this webinar is all about. Except for one thing, it's also to be educated and inspired. And so in that vein, I am delighted to introduce a friend of mine, E.J. Dionne, who is always educating us and inspiring us. E.J. Dionne is the is one of the best known and best journalists and commentators in the country. He is an author of 9 books, including one that we wrote together, 100% Democracy. And he has a new book coming out very shortly on the history of social democracy. EJ, delighted to pass it over to you.
Miles, thank you to everyone who is on this call tonight. A really extraordinary turnout in solidarity with academic freedom, free inquiry, and the government of law. My love to so many friends I know who are out there tonight. And thanks to all who organized this extraordinary effort, which is ongoing and which you'll hear a lot about in the course of the evening. I will just mention 2 who stand in for so many others. My dear friend Miles Rapoport got me involved and has been organizing people, I swear, since he was in preschool. If AMC or Netflix made a drama about an organizer, it would be entitled Better Call Miles. And thank you to a very early actor in this effort, Cambridge City Council member Patty Nolan, who is simultaneously serving her university, her state and city, her country, and the cause of freedom. All of us speaking tonight should aspire to live up to what Adlai Stevenson said about a Harvard grad named John F. Kennedy. If brevity is the soul of wit, Stevenson said of Kennedy, he was the soul of witty brevity. I don't know how witty I will be, but I will be brief, and I just want to open with 2 points before I get to introduce Governor Maura Healey. So many of us are here out of affection and appreciation for Harvard, not just because of what it has done for us, but also the contribution it makes to our country and our world. But I want to stress that we are here because Harvard's fight is, in fact, a fight for the freedom of every academic institution in our country. And not only that, we salute President Garber for standing up to these abuses of power precisely because his and Harvard's stance is not selfish. On the contrary, it reflects the courage to take risks on behalf of the freedom of all independent institutions of civil society and their right to be free from state coercion and threat. Religious institutions and law firms, media outlets, libraries, not-for-profit institutions, organizations that advance the arts and culture, music, and science. On NPR the other day, Maura Healey said that those resisting President Trump's actions here do so because, quotes, he wants to dominate any institution he sees opposing him. Domination is not a democratic habit. The second point is critical. Our task is to build the broadest possible coalition on behalf of Harvard and by extension on behalf of the freedom of all universities. I cheer my friends at the Wall Street Journal editorial page, whom I don't usually agree with, for writing this weekend. The Trump administration seems to think it needs to destroy Harvard in order to save it. That, the editorialists went on, is the opposite of making America great, and good for them. Gather together any 5 people with close ties to Harvard, and you'll get 10 ideas for change and 15 lines of criticism, many of them in conflict with each other. That's freedom for you. Great institutions need advice and criticism. But the debates we need to have over the future of higher education cannot, should not, must not be carried out when our university and all the others confront a lawless authoritarian threat. We must come together now precisely to defend free debate and free inquiry and to oppose domination and efforts to inspire fear where there should be courage and daring. President Steven Pinker, who has offered his own share of criticisms of Harvard, but is standing up for it now, had it right. To cripple the institutions that acquire and transmit knowledge, he wrote, is a tragic blunder and a crime against future generations. So I'll ask you to take on the advice from the Republican Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt, who graduated from Harvard long ago. In this fight, do what you can with what you have, where you are. We owe it not just to Harvard, but to all our fellow citizens. It is my honor now to introduce Governor Maura Healey. I got to know Governor Healey a couple of years ago when she was campaigning in Attleboro and my dear hometown of Fall River, Massachusetts. Bless you for visiting my hometown on the campaign. She was elected governor in 2022 after serving 2 terms as Attorney General. Prior to that, she was a civil rights lawyer, a partner at an international law firm, and a professional basketball player. And I watched her shoot hoops in Attleboro, and she really can shoot hoops. Governor Healey, it's great to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be with everybody here tonight, and I continue to see people joining this Crimson Courage call. I'll say a few things. I'm obviously here as an alum, and I'm proud of my school, proud of Harvard. I'm also here as governor, and I thought I'd just start tonight by talking about a few things as governor of the state of Massachusetts, to the extent that's helpful. I also want to say at the outset that EJ referenced President Garber. I want to say clearly, as a former civil rights lawyer, I denounce anti-Semitism. We all denounce anti-Semitism. Stopping its spread on campuses, including at Harvard, is very important. I worked last year in partnership with our legislature to pass a law establishing a whole commission on combating anti-Semitism, and there's continuing work there. And Harvard has taken steps to address this issue, and President Garber is committed to doing more and working on that. But I say that at the outset because the actions taken by the Trump administration are pretext. They're pretext, and they're not about stopping anti-Semitism, because as somebody who engaged with people in the course of civil rights investigations, this isn't how you actually conduct yourself. This isn't about that issue. To me, it's simply a pretext for attacking anyone with whom the president or the administration has disagreement. And we've seen that again with law firms, with corporations, with ordinary Americans, and now with colleges and universities. Here's what Harvard means, though, to Massachusetts. A major driver of our economy, major driver of innovation, the 4th largest employer in the state, contributing more than $6 billion to the economy. That doesn't even include the startups, the companies, and what emanates from Harvard. Harvard's international students, just those on campus alone, contribute $400 million to our local economy every year and support thousands and thousands of jobs. This doesn't even count the researchers who have found diseases, the researchers who are working right now all over our state, or were working, and working on the various cures and treatments and technologies, and the entrepreneurs who are creating so many of the innovations and world-class businesses. So when President Trump attacks Harvard, he's attacking the Massachusetts economy. He's also attacking the American economy, because as EJ says, this is about more than Harvard. And I want to underscore that point, because this weekend I spent time on campuses around Massachusetts. It was commencement the last few weeks. And I've met a lot of students who are graduating, who are looking to move on to the next chapter of their life. And I cannot tell you how many students I hear who are not, and these are from students from all across Massachusetts at various colleges and universities. And I've heard this from colleagues in other states. People are making decisions to go outside of the United States, including United States citizens, because of the actions that Trump has taken. This will have a devastating effect on American competitiveness, on our economies, and America's leadership in the world. And I see it play out real time here in Massachusetts. The attacks on science and medical research. Right now, as governor, I visited hospitals, including Boston Children's, which is a Harvard teaching hospital, where the best pediatric care in the world. And there have already been cuts to NIH funds there, and families, who are suffering with loved ones with rare diseases are not going to have access to the cures and treatments that they deserve, because in Harvard labs, things have been shut down in places. The attacks on diversity, driving that out, I don't understand. It seems to me that having voices and more experiences around the table makes us stronger. It made for a stronger military, stronger economy, stronger bottom line, and yes, a stronger education. The attacks on international students, I just referenced that. This is directly undercutting our ability to attract the world's talent. And I want America first. I want America to succeed. I want America to soar when it comes to leading on innovation and its global place in the world. And this is directly undercutting that. I see it play out every day in real time. People are going to take their talents elsewhere, including students from the United States, including faculty from the United States, including the entrepreneurs and the researchers and the future Nobel Prize winners and the people who are developing companies in Massachusetts and beyond because of these actions. So I stand with Harvard, not only as an alum, but as a governor, really concerned about the direction of the economy and the American economy and the devastating impact this has. I'll look forward to others' comments tonight. Important to talk about, of course, academic freedom and the fact that what is really going on right now is Donald Trump is trying to tell Harvard University who can get in, who can teach, what they can teach. And that's just antithetical to what we have stood for in this country. And I speak for Massachusetts, where we've been doing this for 250 years. We kicked off the whole American Revolution right here. And I think it's served us well. And we just need to really stay strong in this moment. I hope you continue to support with your voices. I hope you support with your resources. We've got to find ways to give resources to support the ongoing study and research and science and innovation, and support by sharing your story and getting as many alums to talk to as many in Congress as possible and within the administration to put the brakes on this. Because the idea, I don't believe this is going to stop with Harvard. If they're going to do it to Harvard, they can do it to anyone and everyone. And we all need to be really strong together. So thank you. And I support what everybody's doing here and look forward to joining in those efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Governor Healey, and my love to my dear home state. A lot of folks out there are very interested in what's happening with illegal cases, and also in an alumni amicus brief that's being put together. And we couldn't have two better people to discuss that. Professor Randall Kennedy is the Michael R. Klein Professor of Law at Harvard Law School. He is the author of many books. I must say I started reading you, Professor Kennedy, more than 50 years ago and admire you so much. His books include Race, Crime, and the Law, which was awarded the 1988 Robert F. Kennedy Book Award, and The Persistence of the Color Line, Racial Politics, and the Obama Presidency. And also, we are joined by Anurima Bhargava. She is the founder and CEO of Anthem for Us, who was former chief of the Educational Opportunities section of the Department of Justice and former director of the education practice at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. She is leading the project of an alumni amicus brief supporting Harvard, and we are so grateful that both of you are here.
Thank you very much. Harvard is under siege from the Trump administration. That's clear. It's under attack in a variety of ways. My remarks will be limited, however, to describing two of the legal fronts of the struggle. One involves an effort to deprive the university of federal funds relied upon by researchers, particularly those in the sciences. On April 11th, the Trump administration sent university leadership an ultimatum. The main stated complaint propelling the ultimatum is a charge that the university has permitted the growth of anti-Semitism such that Jewish and Israeli affiliates have been subjected to a hostile environment that has denied them access to equal educational opportunities protected pursuant to Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. The government insisted that the university accede to certain terms. These included, quote, reducing the power held by faculty and administrators more committed to activism than scholarship, end quote. Excluding international students, quote, hostile to the American values and institutions inscribed in the United States Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. making arrangements to ensure that each department, field, or teaching unit must be individually viewpoint diverse, shuttering immediately all DEI programs, and engaging a third party to audit the university's compliance with these demands. The Trump administration indicated that if the university did not agree to these terms, the government would withhold federal funding. On April 14th, Alan Garber announced that Harvard would not accept the proposed agreement. The university, he asserted, would not surrender its independence or relinquish its constitutional rights. President Garber also announced that the university was suing in defense of its rights. The university's argument is that the government is encroaching on the university's constitutional rights by attempting to take over its academic affairs for ideological reasons. The university also contends that the government has failed to follow the procedural rules set forth in the Civil Rights Act, rules that set forth hearings and formal fact findings that the government has simply ignored. The university's suit led to an avalanche of freeze orders on funding, reaching to many millions of dollars. The second legal front involves the university's ability to host foreign students. On May 22nd, the Trump administration, more specifically the Department of Homeland Security, revoked, effective immediately, the certification required of a university to enroll students from abroad, a category that constitutes about a quarter of Harvard's student body. The government justifies its action on the grounds that the university has been delinquent in responding to requests for information and fosters an unsafe campus environment that is hostile to Jewish students, promotes pro-Hamas sympathies, and employs racist DEI policies. Harvard again sued the government, contending that this revocation is a blatant violation of the First Amendment, the Due Process Clause, and the Administrative Procedure Act. The university won preliminary relief from a federal district judge with respect to the second suit. Judge Allison Burroughs issued a temporary restraining order on May 23rd. The university is awaiting a hearing with respect to the first suit, the Title VI action. That is a stripped-down version of where things stand, a version that does not include the various investigations that have been unleashed against a wide range of sub-communities within the broader Harvard community, from the medical school to the Harvard Law Review. And the pressure mounts daily. The New York Times is now reporting that the Government Services Administration is requesting all federal agencies to terminate their contracts with Harvard. With respect to the lawsuits I mentioned previously, the university should prevail and probably will. One must keep in mind, however, that litigation always carries risks. Courts are by no means foolproof. They too can misfire and sometimes do so disastrously. Courts, moreover, have limited reach. What about other forthcoming attacks? What about next year? Courts cannot or will not preempt future governmental encroachments. I accentuate the dawning realities for two reasons. First, recognition of the bind we are in only increases my appreciation for what Alan Garber and university leadership has done. In difficult circumstances, it has, for the most part, acted not only in the long-term best interests of Harvard, but also in the long-term best interests of higher education in America. Second, recognition of the bind we are in is needed to underscore the extent to which all members of our community need to pitch in to support the university in this moment of unprecedented peril. That you are on this call shows that you care. Congratulations on that. But we are all going to have to step up even more in the weeks, months, and years to come. Thank you.
And Anu, We are grateful for you, for your willingness to talk about the amicus brief. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, EJ and Professor Kennedy. You couldn't have set it up any better than that, which is we are here to talk about the ways in which all of us as alumni, and it's just really a pleasure to be able to be here with thousands. We are full and on and spilling out into other platforms, and so I'm really grateful for all of the alums who have stood up in the last 2 months on the attacks against Harvard. There have been multiple letters that thousands of alumni have signed to ask Harvard to stand up. And now we have drafted an amicus brief in the first lawsuit that Professor Kennedy spoke about, which is really challenging the government's taking away of more than $2.2 billion in funds. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about that lawsuit and about the amicus brief. But as you can see in the chat, I just want to note this while we're sitting here. I'm hoping that we can get a number of you to sign on to the amicus brief. The link to it is the link to the sign on form is being circulated in the chat probably every 15 seconds. So please sign on. But this is our moment because alumni have a very important role to play. We are not students, we are not faculty, we're not the administration. And so in some ways, we don't have the same kinds of constraints that others may have about speaking out on what it is that this attack means. And so what I'm going to do, if for a moment, is just to get everyone excited about what's in the brief. I want to say a few things, which is the brief is part of a coordinated effort to have a number of voices speak to the court. This is the Federal District Court in Massachusetts, Judge Allison Burroughs, about why this matters to us, why it is that the attacks that are being made by the administration and the government are so important in this moment. And so we're doing a front of the court brief on behalf of Harvard alums. And so please not only sign, but send it out to alumni around the world because that is the way in which we can have, one way in which we could have our voices heard. And so I'm going to just speak to the intro to the brief because, obviously this is a moment that is about much more than Harvard. It is about higher education more broadly. And our fellow institutions across America, both public and private. I mean, we had rallies at Yale reunion this weekend supporting Harvard, and it is our time that we need to stand up for all of us. And so I'm gonna speak a little bit about what the brief, how the brief starts. The brief speaks to our deep alarm at the government's reckless and unlawful attempts to assert control over the core functions of Harvard and its fellow institutions of higher education, without due process or any recognizable basis in law, and with complete disregard for the freedoms the Constitution secures and the constraints it imposes. The government has embarked on a campaign to deploy every power at its disposal to damage Harvard. As you all know, the government launched its campaign with threats to withhold billions in research funding in a brazen attempt to dictate and shape viewpoints at Harvard, and that abruptly terminated those funds when Harvard's leadership did not comply, directly imperiling life-saving scientific research and innovation, the impacts of which are already being felt. That was just the first step, and it's not the main one. The government strikes at the very core of Harvard, the long-standing practices and values of openness, free inquiry, mutual respect, and its founding commitment to veritas, the quest for truth above all. The government's end goal is to narrow, as Governor Healey spoke to, our freedoms to learn, teach, think, and act, and to dictate who may enjoy those freedoms. As alumni of Harvard, we know that beyond the prestige and the accolades, Harvard's true greatness resides in the ways we share these values and exercise these freedoms, which have long shaped how we understand and connect with one another, how we anchor our continuing efforts to make a difference in service to the world. I hope that all of you will have the opportunity. That's just the first page of the amicus brief. I hope you will all have a chance to sign it. And let me just say this, which is what is at stake right now is as I mentioned, not just about Harvard. It's about I led many of the federal investigations around colleges and universities. And what we are seeing in this investigation is nothing more than an effort at bullying, coercion, and extortion of Harvard and of higher education more broadly. The effort is not to try and fix problems, which we have all noted Harvard has and many of the institutions of higher education have around this country. It's not even an attempt to fix those. It's an attempt to destroy. And so we really need to make sure that in this moment, our voices are heard. And I encourage all of you to continue to find ways in which to get involved in the lawsuits, but also to speak out about what it is in your own Harvard experience that has been that you feel like is under attack in these instances, because the threats to federal funding, the cutting off of the educational lives of international students and scholars is only the covering to the main event, which is really to destroy the very institution and the very ethos that raised us all. So thank you.
Thank you so very much for that. And I think a lot of people are going to want to sign on to the great work that you're doing. We're very honored today to be joined also by New York Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado. He was appointed Lieutenant Governor in May 2022 by New York Governor Kathy Hochul, and was then elected to a 4-year term in November of that year. A Rhodes Scholar, he graduated from Harvard Law School in 2005 and served 2 terms in Congress. It's really good of you to join us tonight, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you.
Thank you, EJ. Thanks to everybody for pulling this together, the organizers, the leaders who've worked very diligently to make this happen, and to everybody who has joined this evening's call. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for standing with the belief, the firm belief in the free exchange of ideas and the power of information and the power of knowledge. I think it's very, very important to understand that what we're talking about and what Harvard is in many respects is a test case for the Trump administration. The goal here is to figure out how much information can be controlled, how much dissent can be quashed, how much of the ability can they leverage by way of the power of the state to control the way we communicate. If we don't understand this for what exactly it is, that this is indeed the hallmark of an emerging autocratic regime, if we don't begin to fully appreciate the magnitude of this moment, as Professor Kennedy spoke to, we will continue to falter in this moment. To have civic institutions of great import, like Harvard, that predate the very foundation of our country, step up in this moment and engage, and not just engage, but be prepared to sacrifice, be prepared to give something up, be prepared to get outside of the game of survival and outside of the game of self-preservation. That is the level of commitment. That is the level of dedication. That is the level of focus that is required in this moment. It is important to understand, particularly as somebody who operates in the political realm, that this is bigger than politics. This is a moral question. This is a moral dilemma. This is a moral fight. Democracy is built on a moral idea that we are all created equal. Every single one of us, irrespective of race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, we are all equal. That is a moral idea. It requires faith in it. And absent moral leadership in this moment, whether from the left or from the right, absent moral leadership in this moment, our democracy will collapse on itself. And we're seeing that in real time, in the absence of moral leadership. And what is important to highlight now more than ever is culturally where we are as a society, with the epidemic of loneliness, with social fragmentation, the social media platforms, the cable news networks, all of these dimensions that have isolated us, have created echo chambers of misinformation, and have allowed these conspiracy theories to take root and get accelerated across different platforms at an accelerated rate. This is the problem that we are facing right now as a country, is how do we pull ourselves together? How do we restore truth? How do we restore fact? How do we restore objectivity? In the absence of this, a demagogue who is hell-bent on undermining our democracy has prime fertile ground to operate from. And so my call to us today, to all of us here on this call and beyond, is to think about what is going to be required to have shared collective sacrifice and shared collective responsibility that connects us to our shared humanity, to see beyond the partisanship and to see beyond the political divides and to get back to the basics of what it means to be a free society that is grounded in our moral values. If we don't step up in this moment and ground ourselves in that fight, then we will continue to find ourselves in this position. I personally pull from the legacy of Dr. King, the legacy of civil disobedience, and understanding that absent a willingness to give up oneself in this struggle in a powerful way, absent a commitment to our moral foundation, then we are going to be in a tough spot. Lastly, I just want to say this. What I have found as someone who served in a district that Trump won, a congressional seat that Trump won in 2016 by 7 points, that I ended up winning again in 2018 by 5, and then winning again in 2020 by 12 points. When I connect with folks all across the political spectrum, unfortunately, the appeal of Trump right now is his uninhibitedness, his rawness. It is incumbent upon us to try in our own right to find that same level of uninhibitedness and rawness, but rather than deploy it for destructive purposes and destructive ends, it should be deployed for constructive, unifying ends. Rather than have it grounded in hate and division and extremism, it should be grounded in love, a strong, demanding love, the kind of love that Dr. King preached. It should be grounded in mutual respect, compassion, empathy, and truth. This is the kind of focus that we need in this moment. This is the kind of sacrifice we all must be prepared to make. So I want to thank you all for the work that you all do in your own rights every single day. I'm inspired by your level of commitment. And please know that in New York, where we wave the flag for progress, where we wave the flag for equality, diversity, inclusion, multiculturalism, multi-religion, when we are the epicenter of tolerance and acceptance, we will continue to wave the flag. We will continue to be the progress in the face of their regress. This has got to be the moment we all step up and get the job done. And thank you so much for the work that you all do. And God bless every single one of you.
Thank you, Antonio. That was great. I said that we would be educated and inspired, and we have been both already. However, the other part of the day is about action and what are we going to do to support Harvard in the fight and to make sure that we are broadening and building every day. So from that point of view, I want to introduce 4 of the leading folks who are part of Crimson Courage that are going to talk about different kinds of events that we are doing and actions that we're doing. First, Lou Finfer, who's been a community organizer and a leading advocate in Massachusetts for over 50 years. He is currently the director of Mass Action for Justice. And he and Patty Nolan by the way, Lou is class of 72. Patty Nolan is the class of 80. Patty is in her 3rd term as a member of the Cambridge City Council. And prior to that, she served for 14 years on the Cambridge School Committee. God bless you. Anyway, they were actually key spokespeople at a press conference that took place at 6. And so at least I'm really eager to hear about it. So Lou and Patty, you have the floor.
Want me to start, Lou?
Sure.
So today we heard from a broad spectrum of people affected: researchers, staff, local leaders, and alums. And all were united in the cause of academic freedom, independence, the rule of law. And this is a message we critically need to get out, that the impact of this attack on Harvard, which is what it is a broad attack on the institution as a whole. It's being felt in quarters normally not involved with Harvard. The reach and import of the work done on our alma mater is actually quite exciting. The positive impact on Americans in the world is mind-boggling. There is a reason Harvard is the preeminent university in the USA. There is no good reason to attack it, and that's what we heard over and over again. Improve it, sure, we all believe that. But destroying it would hurt countless people directly, harm our economy, and damage our competitiveness. And at its heart, what we heard, it truly is anti-American, this attack.
Thanks, Patty. We heard from 3 professors who lead major research efforts to look at cancer and public health issues: including a study involving 150,000 people over the last 50 years with samples and so forth, DNA samples and kidney samples that all would be lost if this goes through. It brought tears to my eyes. And we heard from a spokesperson for the 6,800 international students who are being kicked out of Harvard, and standing up with great courage to speak out publicly when they could be whisked off by ICE at any moment with this regime. And we also heard about representing the 20,000 employees. We heard from Simone Gonzalez from the Harvard Union of Clerical and Technical Workers about the impact of layoffs and the impact of these kind of working conditions. And student leaders, Nana Safo-Menzo, who's the student president of Phillips Brooks House Association, spoke eloquently about the impact and the need to stand up at this time. And there are 30,000 students at Harvard that he's a student leader amongst them. And we heard from Patty, who you heard from. And Jessica Tang, the American Federation of Teachers president of Massachusetts, said, as an alum, our commitment to living by the Harvard motto, Veritas, truth, does not stop when we complete our studies. And to be clear, the attacks on Harvard and the institutions of higher ed mirror the moves we've seen in authoritarian regimes that seek to suppress knowledge and independent thought. And Andrea Thomas from the Coalition for Diverse Harvard spoke about how we are stronger together, but Harvard can still do better in protecting its students and the basic rights they and faculty employees should have. And then we heard from Anurima, who you've heard from tonight on the amicus. As we come together by the thousands, 5,000 plus tonight on this webinar, why does the number 10,000 come into my head? So if we got 10,000 signatures on the amicus brief, imagine it. Then we can literally sing that Harvard fight song with some new verses, like 10,000 men and women of Harvard want victory today. 10,000 men and women of Harvard want victory today. So, and we all know this is a lot bigger than Harvard, but we need a fight song and we need to fight. So thanks everyone for being here tonight.
Fight fiercely, Harvard, and get the message out about how much Harvard does for the world.
Thank you, Lou and Patty. That was great. And sounds like the press conference was great. I want to introduce Jack Mills. Somebody had the really interesting idea that one of the things that should happen on commencement day on Thursday is that everyone going into the commencement should have a Crimson Courage sticker. We have a nice, you can see the logo right there. Looks good. And if 10,000 people, men and women, are wearing it at the graduation, that'll be something good. So Jack Mills, who is an active community advocate in Boston on issues of housing, tenants' rights, and fair employment, stepped up and said, all right, I'll lead the project so we can get these stickers out. So Jack, tell us what the plan is and go ahead and sign people up to come out and do it. It's only 6:45 in the morning.
Thank you, Miles. And I'll say this, there's no I in team. This has been a team effort from the very beginning. You know, what you're hearing tonight is some of the activity that Crimson Courage has taken on and moved forward. It's important for alumni and students who are soon going to be alumni to learn about Crimson Courage and our activities. That's why I want to ask you to volunteer to join members of the committee as we distribute 10,000 stickers and 10,000 postcards. It's going to be 6:30 a.m. In front of the gates to Harvard Yard on commencement day, this Thursday, May 29th. We'll also be distributing them stickers and postcards during the reunion. That's Wednesday, June 4th and 5th, and especially Friday, June 6th, which is Alumni Day, for alumni to wear during the parade. The stickers have three purposes: to show alumni support for Harvard's efforts to maintain independence and academic freedom for our alma mater, but also for all of higher education, to show Crimson Courage's presence and to involve more alumni in Crimson Courage. The postcards go back to what Lou was saying. One side of them provides information about the amicus brief and a QR code so people can sign up. The other side provides more information about Crimson Courage and particularly our website. So I'm looking for volunteers. There should be a volunteer form that's in the chat. Well, if it's not already, it will be soon. Please find that volunteer form in the chat and sign up. And there's the things I've mentioned and other things to do. So I hope you'll sign up as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jack, and thanks for your work on this project. All right, I'm going to reintroduce Nauka Carey, who is, in addition to what she's said about herself earlier, she's a member of the class of 95, got an MA in education in 99. But she has been a key member of Crimson Courage, the co-chair with me of the efforts around the commencement and next week's reunions. And she's been just a key organizer on all of the activities. It has been a pleasure for me to meet her, which I hadn't before, and to work with her. So, Nauka, you have the floor.
Great. Thank you so much, Miles. So as Jack mentioned, the first part of Alumni Day, so Alumni Day is the day that all of the reunions overlap. So that's the day that we have the most alums on campus. And the first part of that is to have this really strong visual showing with the stickers at the parade to show that there is broad support for Harvard. The second event is a forum on Alumni Day to talk more with alums at reunion about ways that they can get involved in the work and get feedback about the work. Anurima will be presenting the latest updates on the court cases, and we'll also hear Professor Arkan Fung, the director of the Ash Center at the Harvard Kennedy School, about how faculty are responding on campus. And we'll also have Patty Nolan from the Cambridge City Council and Jessica Tang from Mass Teachers Association. And as a bonus, especially for those of you who are participating tonight, we'll actually have the opportunity to engage in a larger Q&A. You should be receiving an invitation to that event with more information in the next day or two. So please register and also share your questions, which we can share with our speakers in advance. Again, this is sort of the portion on Alumni Day, things that are in person for people to get engaged in right away. And we'll discuss a little bit more in the future what some other opportunities to get involved.
Thanks very much. EJ, back to you.
I'm very happy to introduce my friend Bill Kristol, Harvard class of 73. We were in the same class. He got his Ph.D. in 1979. We've had great fun over the years, both agreeing and disagreeing with each other. We agree a little bit more these days. Bill is and I really appreciate Bill's work. He is the editor-at-large of the Bulwark, a well-known commentator, held high-level positions in the Reagan and George H.W. Bush administrations. Bill, thank you for joining this fight and this conversation this evening.
Thanks, EJ. It's good to be with all of you. Susan and I, my wife Susan and I were discussing what I might say this evening. And Susan, who also is a Harvard graduate, undergraduate, and PhD in classics, suggested, well, why don't you tell the story of Thrasybulus and Periander? And so I'll do that. I'll begin with that at least. As you all recall, of course, from your reading of study of Herodotus and Aristotle when you were at Harvard, Thrasybulus was the tyrant of Miletus around 600 BCE. And he was kind of a new tyrant, I gather. And so he sent an envoy across the Aegean to seek advice from the well-established tyrant Periander, who ran Corinth. And here's how Aristotle describes what happened. It is said that to the messenger of Thrasybulus, who had come for advice, Periander returned no answer. He said nothing. But simply while walking in the field, he reduced all the ears of corn to one level by lopping off the tallest. The messenger was baffled by this, but he went back to Miletus, met with his boss, Thrasybulus, and told him this baffling action by Periander, but Thrasybulus understood perfectly. If you're a tyrant or an autocrat, we might say today, you need to make sure that there is no one standing in your way, that there's no one too tall, no one or no institution who's too tall, who can stand out, who can stand up for himself or for itself. That's the essence of autocratic power, chopping off that institution, reducing it to the earth, to that as much as you can. And that's what this is about. That's what's happening here. Trump is engaged in an autocratic project. A lot of that project has to do with getting more personalized and centralized control of the executive branch and of the federal government as a whole. But a lot of it also has to do with getting control of, as much as possible, the institutions outside government, the institutions of civil society, and thus the assault on the law firms and the tech businesses and other corporations and unions and not-for-profits and the media and the universities. And Harvard, for better or worse, and I say this not trying to be immodest here, I just think it's empirically true. Harvard is the most conspicuous of the universities, the tallest, the one that, if you want to be a successful autocrat, could stand in your way, and therefore it's important to try to reduce, and that's what Trump is trying. You know, it's interesting. Even back 2,500 years ago, we have a story from Herodotus, repeated by Aristotle, as I say, of one tyrant seeking advice from another. So that we see this today, of course, and it's not just a modern phenomenon. Somehow the tyrants, the autocrats, understand that they have kind of a common interest and tend to stick together. In any case, this is about authoritarianism. It's not really or primarily about anti-Semitism, real or alleged. It's not primarily about if Harvard's doing a good job of registering and keeping track of its foreign students, or whether there are too many foreign students, whatever that might mean. It's not primarily about paying for medical research. It's not even really primarily about academic freedom. All of those things are important and all need to be defended. And I think, obviously they'll be defended legally in court, but I think in the court of opinion too, the case needs to be made, as has been indicated already here tonight, of the great contributions that are being made by Harvard in all these areas to our well-being, to America's well-being, I dare say even the world's well-being. So that argument really is important to make. But we should understand what's happening here as we make those legitimate arguments, those correct arguments. This is about Donald Trump's authoritarian project. It's about bringing Harvard to heel. It's about cutting down Harvard and sending a signal, and not just a signal to other institutions of higher education, but to other institutions outside of governmental control altogether. Harvard didn't choose to be front and center in this fight. Harvard does choose sometimes to be front and center, I think, but in this case, I suspect Harvard would have been just as soon someone else might have been there. But here we are, and we don't have a choice but to fight, and we should really be honored in a sense that Harvard has been called on to be a major player in this fight. I mean, the Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, didn't have a choice as to whether they were going to become the objects of anti-immigrant bigotry. The Venezuelans who have temporary protected status didn't choose to suddenly lose their status arbitrarily. Employees of USAID didn't choose to be fired. Obviously, federal employees didn't choose to have their union status revoked. These are all things that last case, it hasn't happened yet, but they're trying, and as in some of these other cases. So you don't always get to choose what fights people pick with you. But in this case, I do think Harvard should be proud to have been selected, in a sense, to be the object of President Trump's ire and the object of his attack. And I'm proud that Harvard is standing up to fight, not just for itself. And Harvard should be proud that it's standing up to fight, not just for itself, but for the institutions and principles of a free society.
Thank you, Bill. And I think Naoko is taking over from here.
We're going to hear next from some of the leadership within Crimson Courage, as well as some of the partners and organizations that we've been working with, who are going to talk more about the work that the group is doing beyond reunion and how alums can get involved. And I'll just quickly introduce the four of them. So first, we have Hunter Motz, who is a member of the Harvard class of 2004 and a writer, educator, and co-founder of Crimson Courage. We have Ian Simmons, who's Harvard class of 2000, who's the co-founder, president, and board chair of Democracy House and a co-founder of Alumni for Democracy. Vivian Lewis from Harvard class of 1973, who's a board member of Class Act, an organization that brings classmates from the class of 73 together to address important local, national, and international issues. And then we'll have Jyoti Jasra Saria, who is Harvard class of 2012 and the law school class of 2008, and who was elected to serve on the board of the Harvard Alumni Association in 2022. And I'm excited to hear from all of you.
Hi, everybody. One of the great privileges of graduating from Harvard is you get hit up for money a lot. So it's a bit ironic that I am going to be asking you to donate to Harvard. I had personally never given money to Harvard until this year, but obviously extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures. So the question is, why give to Harvard? Well, when we started Crimson Courage, and it really started with a few dozen people, we never thought that it would grow this quickly to be thousands of people. But it really sends a meaningful signal. It sends a meaningful signal that, even as this core institution, this pillar of democracy is threatened, that the community around Harvard is here to support it. And so I think that's the important thing to recognize is that, yes, does Harvard need billions of dollars? 100%. But donating is not fundamentally about bridging that financial gap. It is fundamentally about participating. That is what matters to the university. They want to know and they want a message that we are behind them. And they also know that they need to make some changes in order to earn our participation. And I will tell you that in my conversations with the Harvard Alumni Association, with the Harvard College Fund, they are very, very receptive. They want to hear from alumni. They want to know how they can do better, and they want to rebuild these relationships. And the thing is that, obviously there is a much, much larger fight here, right? But Harvard is under attack. And if we can rally the 400,000 alumni of the Harvard community around the university, we have the basis to be able to build a much, much larger coalition. We encourage other universities to start their own courage movements. That's why we named it this way. And obviously we recognize that we'll need to build a coalition across the aisle with veterans, with unions, and much, much more. So please donate to the Harvard College Fund, the Presidential Priorities Fund, because you're showing that you stand with Harvard and you stand with democracy.
Ian.
Thank you, Nauka. My name is Ian Simmons, and I graduated Harvard College in 2000. I'm here tonight as board chair of Democracy House and its program Alumni for Democracy, which is stepping up to support the Crimson Courage campaign. But first, let me note that I come in here part from my business experience. My wife and I are award-winning investors in solutions to society's challenges, solutions built on science and freedom. Kneecapping research and higher education is no way to build the American economy of the future. I have seen in country after country how America is in strategic competition, most notably with China's autocratic communist government. These attacks stand to benefit China's government, not the American people. China is already using these attacks to recruit our best and the brightest. Undermining Harvard and higher education is a gift to the Chinese Communist government. I am also a member of Leadership Now, which is organizing a letter from business leaders affirming that our universities are critical to America's competitiveness. Those of you who are business leaders can go to a link in the chat or reach out through Leadership Now website to sign on to a letter that's coming out soon. Now let me speak to my experience from before college. For a time before college, I lived under an authoritarian regime overseas where due process was repeatedly violated. It was not pretty. I saw families devastated. I learned at a young age that not only can democracy not be taken for granted, but that the work of defending, strengthening, and improving it takes all of us. That's why I founded Democracy House, which inspires rising generations to defend, strengthen, and improve democracy, especially American freedom and American constitutional democracy. A core value of ours is intergenerational engagement, which is why we have developed our Alumni for Democracy program. Alumni for Democracy connects alumni to learn, share resources, network, and take action in this critical time now and for the long term. It is critical for Harvard alumni and alumni across the country to meet the moment. Each of us can do more to stand up against fear and stand for American freedom, for American democracy, American science, and the American economy. Now is the time for all hands on deck. Please look in the chat and click the link to join the Alumni for Democracy Learning and Action Network. Together, we can do more to support the Crimson Courage campaign and help Harvard fight back. We also, together, we can support courage campaigns at other universities and in critical places around the country. Thank you.
Everyone is so eloquent tonight. I'm Vivian Lewis, and I'm pleased to be here to speak briefly about the Class Act movement and its relevance to Crimson Courage. Class Act is proud to be a partner in this Crimson Courage campaign. Class Act started out as a group of college classmates interested in service and relationships. We've since connected classmates who volunteer to tackle issues that range anywhere from legacy planning for a local children's orchestra to providing health care in under-resourced countries and protecting voting rights in the last United States election. On July 10th, we'll be holding a forum on freedom of the press. Please sign up for our listserv to hear more about this and other Class Act events, sending an email to classacthr73@gmail.com. I know Diana will put the link in the chat. So over the last decade, Class Act has grown from just one class into a model for outward-facing alumni engagement that connects alumni who work together to achieve positive social change. Multiple classes from Harvard are now adapting the model, and classes are collaborating with each other to pursue change. Class Act exemplifies all that we are proud of in being Harvard alums. Crimson Courage is the most outstanding example of this collaboration. It is addressing two of the most significant problems facing our country: threats to academic freedom and the rule of law that underpin our democracy. Class Act is one vehicle to support this work. Relationships formed or deepened through Class Acts are a powerful force, going beyond a single class and way beyond Harvard. I urge everyone to use your relationships and your networks to ensure that our democracy endures. Please spread the word about the need to stand up for higher education through your contacts and your professional and civic organizations. Make your opinions known to your elected representatives. Heed the calls to action that you are hearing tonight. And thank you once again for this opportunity to represent Class Act and to support Harvard in this moment of need.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jyoti Jasrasaria. I'll echo many of my fellow panelists to say that while Harvard is certainly not perfect, it has been incredibly heartening to see so much renewed pride in being part of the Harvard community. And as this event makes clear, being a Harvard alum means a lot more than just holding a degree. It also means holding a responsibility. And the efforts that we just heard about are powerful reminders of what we can do together. As an elected director of the Harvard Alumni Association, I encourage you to visit alumni.harvard.edu to explore the Alumni Toolkit, which compiles resources to support alumni action, whether it's calling your member of Congress or simply staying informed. The website provides clear information about the ongoing threats that we've been hearing about today to academic freedom, to federal funding, and to Harvard's international students and scholars. It also includes explainers on Harvard's endowment and ways that the university is combating bias and promoting pluralism. One of the things that makes the Harvard Alumni Network so unique is our reach. And we are, in nearly every community in every sector. As President Garber has emphasized, there's real power in helping people understand what's at stake right where you are. And finally, there's just something deeply meaningful about being in community right now. And while, of course, so much of that is happening outside of our Harvard circles, I hope that you'll consider reaching out to your local Harvard club, joining a shared interest group, or attending Alumni Day on June 6th, if you can. So thank you again for joining us today, and I'll hand it back to our moderators.
That was such a great series of things that people can actually do, which is extremely important in what tonight is about. And our next speaker, it's so important for us to stress that this is not just Harvard's fight. And Vina Dubal is here and can tell us a lot about that, about what faculty members around the country face and how this threat connects to other threats. She is the National Vice President of the American Association of University Professors and also a law professor at UC Irvine. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. We at the AAUP are deeply honored to stand in solidarity with you all today. Every day, faculty wake up to new funding cuts and novel threats to free speech and to critical thought. Every day, a growing number of our students and colleagues are threatened with detention and deportation. And every day we despair. We despair over what the next attack may be, who will be the administration's next target, and what we can say and not say in our classrooms, what will happen to our collective futures as intellectuals, and what will happen to the educational opportunities for our students, our children, and our grandchildren. These are not hypothetical or hysterical fears. Since Inauguration Day, the Trump administration has waged open warfare on higher education. The speed, scope, and volume of executive orders and agency actions have been overwhelming. Trump is coming for America's universities and higher education workers for the same reason that Mussolini demanded loyalty oaths in 1931 and Viktor Orban launched a vicious smear campaign against Hungary's premier university in 2019. Our commitment to open inquiry over propaganda, to persuasion over coercion, to democracy over dictatorship continues to provide a check on authoritarian rule. The Trump administration is not hiding its agenda. In an interview published in the New York Times in early March, Trump ally and activist Christopher Rufo situated these attacks within a broader campaign to make universities feel, in his words, existential terror. They are succeeding. But together with alumni, there is hope. The American Association of University Professors is a 50,000 person faculty membership group consisting of faculty from across the country, including at Harvard. And we are aggressively engaged in all fronts of this existential battle. Many of you know this, but let me just say that for over a century, since 1915, the AAUP has both defined what academic freedom and shared governance mean and fought to ensure that knowledge workers, experts in our fields, can have the freedom to think and teach without political interference, either from our bosses or from our politicians. Based on our historical perspective, the scale and nature of what we're seeing today goes far beyond what our elders experienced during the McCarthy era. As the eminent historian of McCarthyism, Ellen Schrecker, wrote recently, the current wave of threats and attacks could actually and is intended to wipe out the American system of liberal higher education as we know it. And I want to take Professor Schrecker's statements even further. What is at stake is not just our funding, it is not just our jobs, it is not just academic freedom and liberal higher education, but also the economic and social mobility of generations to come. The dearly and deeply held sense that higher education is a common good, that it is a prime vehicle for innovation, for growth, for critical thought, for economic security, for debate and dissent, and for a healthy democracy, these ideas are being desecrated and destabilized each day. And as the general counsel of the AAUP and as a labor law professor, I'm proud to share how together with our members and local chapters, including the Harvard AAUP, we are collectively fighting back. Due in large part to our growing and mobilized membership, we've been able to sue the Trump administration not once, but 6 different times when university management has failed to protect our campus communities as they did at Columbia. We, together with our chapters and partners, have stood up. So in the first few days of the Trump administration's flurry of unconstitutional executive orders, we were among the first to sue, alleging the vagueness and unconstitutionality of the administration's attempt to end diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives across our college campuses, and we've received a preliminary injunction. We understand the anti-DEI-EO as a stab in the heart of what we as an educational society have been aspiring towards since at least the 1960s. The thoughtful cultivation of campuses that are welcoming and meet the needs of all of our faculty, staff, and students. As students and precarious faculty were abducted off of our streets for their political expression and association, Secretary of State Marco Rubio shamefully said, "Every time I find one of these lunatics, I take away their visas." indicating that he was specifically targeting the constitutionally protected viewpoints of our friends, students, and campus community members. In response, we sued Rubio. Alongside the faculty at Harvard, we sued Rubio and showed that Trump's ideological deportation policies violate the First Amendment and have had broad-scale chilling effects across our campuses. We're going to trial in July. If you have time, our complaint is worth reading. It's a deeply painful account of how non-citizen faculty members are experiencing these extraordinary times. So many of them, your faculty, your Harvard faculty, fear detention and deportation themselves. People have stopped doing research, they've declined talks, they're censoring what they're saying, they're changing what they teach, they've pulled accepted articles, stepped off of boards, and not attended public talks and lectures where viewpoints being expressed might be in ideological opposition to the preferences of the Trump administration. The chilling effects of these unlawful ideological deportation policies are making our campuses less vibrant places for critical conversations. In the context of both the government's attacks on Columbia University and at Harvard University, and alongside our faculty, we have also sued the Trump administration over its perverse use of Title VI to hold these universities hostage to its ideological demands. If our elders knew that this is how the Civil Rights Acts would be weaponized to diminish possibilities of international solidarity and of critical learning and research, they would be rolling in their graves. As students and scholars of social and labor movements, we at the AAUP National do not believe that these lawsuits will save us. Not only are we anxious about the decisions of our politicized judiciary, but we also deeply understand that no affirmative or defensive legal strategy will be triumphant in the absence of a groundswell of mobilization and struggle among our members and allies. And to that end, we are investing time, energy, and resources into organizing skills, trainings, financially incentivizing chapter growth, reimagining popular education, and empowering our members. But these are just tools. Before I leave, I want to ask you to do this. Donations are a critical part of the AAUP strategy, but so are conversations. So more than just money, we ask that you give your minds, talk to your colleagues and friends, use your positions at your kids' schools, at your places of work, and in your communities to talk about what is happening in this moment. Everything good and honorable and fair and noble and hopeful in our communities and for our futures is at stake. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Dubal, for that inspiring talk. And, you know, if you want to know about democracy, if you want to know, if you care about it, if you want to know where it comes from, if you want to know how to fix it, the person you go to is Professor Danielle Allen. And we are just so grateful that you are here with us tonight. Danielle Allen is the James Brian Conant University professor and director of the Allen Lab for Democracy Renovation. She writes regular essays on renovating our democracy for the Washington Post and many other journals. Again, thanks so much for being here.
EJ, thank you. It's great to see you. And thank you to all of your colleagues for organizing this. Thank you also to all those of you who are here. You have no idea how much it means to those of us on campus that you are showing up for Harvard. It has been an exceptionally difficult time. I can't pretend otherwise. And to be in solidarity with you is a real source of inspiration and energy. I'm also so grateful to Bill Kristol for sharing the Herodotus story. That's the story I've been sharing for the last few weeks when people ask me what it's like, the story of the tallest head of corn getting lopped off by the tyrant walking through his fields. I share that story because, among other things, I teach ancient and medieval political thought. I teach Herodotus, I teach Plato, I teach Aristotle, the beginnings of the conversation about justice. Michael Sandel carries on the conversation about justice in the modern era. The course I teach has been taught at Harvard for more than 100 years. I'm sharing these things because, yes, our scientific accomplishments matter. They are changing the world. Same is true for our centuries-long education of citizens and leaders. Ever since John Adams came to Harvard College in 1751, a century before then, and 3 centuries since then as well.
I want you to remember that. I want you to be able to give those concrete examples. When you hear somebody say Harvard does nothing but spew out pro-socialist, pro-Marxist, anti-Semitic students, that is simply false, as you've heard consistently. Yes, we have problems on campus and we are tackling them and we will defeat them. But we are also an institution that has centuries-long and continued tradition of educating people in the basic foundations of democratic citizenship and leadership. And we are proud of that work and that tradition. I am here to ask you also to think about a specific way in which you can help. As many speakers have said already, this isn't just about Harvard. Yes, we're getting more punches than anybody else, but everybody else is getting body blows too. And right now, if we're going to change the dynamic on what is happening, the single most important thing we can do is link arms with alumni on other campuses. I'm going to share with you some concrete examples of places where it would be great if you, all of you who are spread out across this country, can make connections. The University of Alabama, Birmingham. It actually is one of the greatest recipients of research funding from the federal government. It too is being very badly harmed by the NSF-NIH cuts. It is the largest employer in Alabama. We need our alumni community to connect with the alumni community of University of Alabama at Birmingham, okay? We need to be able to link across these spaces. Same with University of Tennessee, which has also taken a major hit. Same with Ole Miss. You can hear what I'm saying too. These are all universities that are in red states. We need blue state universities and red state universities to be a part of the same team working together. Here are a list of universities that will also suffer from the endowment tax. Anybody who knows any alum at any one of these universities, help them to start a Courage community on their campus. Notre Dame, Rice, Washington University, Claremont McKenna College, University of Richmond, Baylor College of Medicine, McPherson College, Kansas, Washington and Lee, Duke, Vanderbilt, Davidson College. In Indiana, Olive Earlham College, DePauw, and Wabash College. Trinity University in Texas, Hillsdale College, Denison University in Ohio. All of these, again, are in a community often put at odds with the Harvard community. We are not at odds. All of us constitute a pillar of freedom for a free society. All of us defend academic freedom, make space for inquiry, make space for debate on hard questions. We do need the community linking across all of the country to do this work together. So thank you for your leadership in setting up the Crimson Courage community here for Harvard. And I hope you can hear the names of those schools I named and go ahead and encourage them to set up Courage communities too. They also need to carry the message that these policies are damaging America.
Danielle, thank you very much. And it's been a pleasure for me to get to know you over the last several years. Your work on democracy renovation is totally inspiring. So thank you. And speaking of inspiring, I'm going to introduce Karen Scharf, who is one of the co-chairs, along with Lou Finfer, of Crimson Courage. She is a 1979 graduate. She has been an organizer, advocate, and for 34 years was the director of Citizen Action of New York, one of the leading citizen organizations really in the country, okay? And also Jessica Tang, who is the president of the Massachusetts American Federation of Teachers. She is has been a longtime advocate for civil rights, for activism. She was a labor leader and a public school teacher. So I don't know how you're divvying it up, but Karen, you want to start?
Jessica's going first.
Okay, Jess, go ahead.
Well,
Thanks to both of
Karen,
you.
no problem. And Karen and I are here for the final call to action. So, as alum, our commitment to living by the Harvard motto, Veritas, does not stop when we complete our studies. And that's why we're here, to seek truth, share what's at stake, but also to share what we're doing together and can do together to help not just Harvard, but our larger community find the courage it needs to stand up and fight back, while we also do the work that needs to be done to make Harvard and our democracy better. And we don't have all the answers, but collectively we do, and there's so much we can do. And we came up with the name of Crimson Courage because we believe courage is what is needed in this moment. And as Hunter shared, we do want that courage to spread to other campuses, and we purposely picked a name that could be replicated. We'd love to see Big Al Courage, Tony the Landshark Courage, and even Bulldog Courage. And we need your help to create a network of other college courage efforts as well. And in the meantime, we hope you'll join us in signing on to the amicus brief and share it, and find courage to join local rallies, marches, and town halls to speak out, even if you have never before, and even if you've never considered doing that before. Because we need our courage to use our various positions of proximity, privilege, and power, both individual and collective, to speak up and share what's happening. Whether publicly or privately, every one of us has a role to play and something to contribute. And if we use our access, time, talents, and resources collectively, we can stop the harm and reverse it. And Crimson Courage is a totally volunteer effort. I can now tell you how many Harvard grads it takes to put together a press conference or a webinar. And P.S., a couple more Zoom proficient volunteers would be awesome. But there are people on this call with so many more skills than that, and we have to slow down and stop the harm before we can reverse it. And to do that, we need to be in the streets, in courtrooms, calling members of Congress, convincing others to use their power. We need C-suite alum and small business owners joined with teachers and working families across sectors, across any party affiliation, to join together. And we also need to courageously use our platforms to uplift the voices of those who are most harmed, most marginalized, and most impacted, not just at Harvard, but beyond. Because we believe that courage is contagious, and we hope that we can inspire others to join the fight and find their courage as well. And so tonight we're asking for your help to please join us. The first step is simply signing up and sharing the website with your classmates so we can stay in touch about upcoming actions that we hope you will help us to plan. But otherwise, the possibilities are endless.
Thanks, Jessica. And we're going to make it really easy for you to answer Jessica's call to action. We will send out a follow-up email after the webinar tonight that will have the critical links that we shared on this during the course of the webinar, including the volunteer form that's being shared right now. In the chat right now is being shared the link to the volunteer sign up. That will give you a chance to sign up for some of the immediate activities this week on Thursday at Commencement and next Friday at Alumni Day. If you're going to be in Cambridge either of those days, we really need your help. Please sign up for those dates. And if you're far from Cambridge, the form's also going to ask about your interest in future activities, regardless of where you live, like outreach to your classmates, working to build a broader movement across universities. I've seen a lot in the chat about people wanting us to build a broader movement. That's definitely an intention, but we need your help to do that. So sign up for that in the volunteer form, and also communicating with policymakers. So please take a moment now as we're finishing up to complete the volunteer form so that we can be in touch with you and you can get involved. And in the short term, we also are going to be following up with you to generate sign-ons to the amicus brief that Anu talked about, because that's going to be due in a couple of weeks. The link was posted earlier, but again, that's going to be in the follow-up email. And you'll also get a link to a recording of this entire webinar later in the week. Back to you, EJ.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who organized this evening. And thank you to all of you who are responding to the many different calls for action and opportunities that we have to press forward. Yesterday, former president, that would be former Harvard president, Drew Faust, wrote a very moving piece, essay in the New York Times about Decoration Day after our Civil War, which evolved into our Memorial Day. She described the celebration of those who fought and died for union and for freedom and for democracy and against slavery and oppression. She concluded with words that might well have been written for us tonight. And I quote her now. We are being asked, she wrote, not to charge into a hail of artillery fire, but only to speak up and stand up in the face of foundational threats to the principles for which they, those Civil War veterans, gave the last measure of their devotion. We have been entrusted with their legacy. Can we trust ourselves to uphold it? The fight of those Civil War veterans, as President Faust said, was for the new birth of freedom that Lincoln described. That's our fight too. It's our job to uphold it. Thank you for joining it. Thank you for pressing it forward. Thank you for your determination to win it on behalf of Harvard, yes, but most of all, for our nation and for freedom around the world. And thank you for knowing that when citizens stand up, freedom wins.
Thank you so much, EJ. And I just want to give another thanks to all of our amazing speakers tonight and our Crimson Courage leaders, all of whom presented so eloquently. Thank you to the thousands of you who are here tonight. And thank you all for the very thoughtful questions we've gotten on the Q&A. We are definitely going to try to respond to them. And if you feel like your questions were not addressed, please reach out to our press team at press@crimsoncourage.com. For those who asked, we are recording this and we will be sharing it within the next few days. Please remember, this is just the start of the work. It's not going to be a short or easy fight for Harvard. So please make sure you go to those links and volunteer, sign on to the amicus, share it with your friends and classmates so that they can also volunteer and sign on to the amicus. And if you missed the links in the busy chat, please know we're going to share those again with all of you. So you will get them by email as well. We hope this is going to be a great start to building a really robust and engaged community of Harvard alums of all ages, schools, backgrounds, political persuasions, a community that joins together to support Harvard's resistance to federal government overreach, which opposes federal efforts to censor vital scholarship, and that works together to improve communication and mutual respect among people from different backgrounds. Thank you all so much for coming tonight. I hope to see or meet many of you at Reunion or at future Crimson Courage events. And with that, we want to just thank you again for coming, and good night.